Hello friends, and welcome to my channel. Today I will show you how I made these sticky ribs using Vital Wheat gluten flour. These are all the dry ingredients that I used to season the dough. I will provide you with a list of ingredients in the description box below. And these are all the wet ingredients. We're going to mix those two separately. One bowl you'll use for dry ingredients, the other one will be for the wet ones. And now to get started, here is 3/4 cups of kidney beans and some tofu. These are the wet ingredients that I have already added into this bowl. I used a total of 1 cup of water when I added it to the blender to combine the tofu and the kidney beans. Please keep in mind that all flours absorb water differently, so with that said, you might have to make adjustments for the water on your end. This is the tofu and the kidney beans. I went ahead and I used my blender cup and I blended that up until smooth. You're going to want to whisk all the dry ingredients together until combined. And you're then going to add your Vital Wheat gluten flour to that. Continue whisking until all the dry ingredients are mixed well. And here are all the wet ingredients that I've already added into this bowl. This is where we're going to add the tofu and kidney beans that have been blended. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that in and continue mixing until everything is incorporated together nicely. And after that, we're going to add both wet and dry ingredients to create the dough. I did use the whole block of tofu, which was 12 ounces total, but it is not in this video. I just wanted to make sure to note that for you guys. Now here I have already added everything together, and I'm going to go ahead and add that to the dry ingredients. To start off, you can use a spoon to mix all the ingredients together. You're then going to go in with your hands and start kneading the dough for about 10 minutes total. Now this is probably the most difficult part in the recipe because it does take 10 minutes of kneading to activate the gluten in the dough. I would recommend using your mixer with your dough hook if you have one available. I know not everyone is able to knead the dough for 10 minutes. It is strenuous and it is hard on the wrist sometimes, so please feel free to use a mixer with a dough hook if needed. Once you've kneaded the dough for a good 10 minutes, you're going to take the dough ball and cut it into 2 pieces. You can actually cut it into more pieces than that, depending on what you want to make with it. I'm making the sticky ribs, so I wanted to make 2 slabs of it. You're going to take the dough and shape it into 2 long pieces that resemble what ribs would look like. And you're welcome to use a rolling pin if you have one. I simply used my hands. It did take me a few minutes to get it into the shape I wanted, but I stretched and then kneaded and then pressed down. So do whatever works for you. Keep in mind that the seitan dough does expand when it is cooked, so make it as thin as possible. As you see here, this one is pretty thin, and it does double in size when cooked. I simmered the seitan dough in this steaming rack and my wok that I already had. I used this griddle to create the marks on the seitan dough. The seitan dough is very sticky, So you want to make sure to use an oil on your griddle before adding the dough. Otherwise, it'll be a sticky mess. And here's how I did that. I went ahead and I oiled the griddle, added the dough, and then I also added oil to the top side before flipping it over. When steaming the seitan, you want to make sure to season your broth. So I use this garlic, herb, and black pepper McCormick seasoning that I have. It's one of my favorites. I added that. I also added some garlic salt to the water that's underneath here, and that's what I steamed mine in. Now, I did not have a big enough lid for my wok pan, so I simply used foil paper. And this is the halfway point. I went ahead and I flipped the seitan over and continued cooking it. I cooked it for a total of an hour and 10 minutes. So you're going to just go ahead and flip it halfway through. As you see here, the water is not boiling. It is still at a simmer. I have it at a setting of 1 on my stovetop. The seitan is now fully cooked after an hour and 10 minutes being steamed. And this is the final product. Now it's up to you whether you want to cook it on the same day or you want to rest it in the fridge overnight. I know some people like to rest it in the fridge and they cook it the following day. I baked this one at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. I just simply added barbecue sauce on both sides, and we ate this the same day that I made the seitan. This one here, I rested in the fridge for 2 days before cooking. On the second day, I took it out of the fridge and I cut it into rib-sized pieces. I then wrapped it with rice paper and added barbecue sauce to it and baked it. Here's how I did that. Wrapping the seitan in rice paper will give it a really nice consistency. This is why I like to do it this way. It does add a bit of a chew to it, which I enjoy. I'm more about texture, and this definitely adds texture to it. And this is how I wrap the seitan in the rice paper. I take the rice paper, dip it in warm water to make it pliable. I then tear it in half or cut it in half. Because of the size of the seitan ribs, I want to make sure that it's not too big for them. So this is why I cut it in half. I then wrap the seitan ribs in the rice paper, holding it tightly so that there isn't any air bubbles. I do use one sheet to cover one piece of seitan, as you see here. Now here are the seitan ribs, all nicely wrapped in rice paper. I'm now going to fry them to crisp them up a bit before putting them in the oven with barbecue sauce. Now here is how I fried them. I made sure to fry the rice paper on all sides. It does change from being clear to white, and that's what you want to see before taking them out and setting them aside. Now when I fried them, I made sure not to allow the ribs to touch each other because the rice paper is sticky. As you see here, I have lined the seitan ribs in a baking pan. I did line it with parchment paper for 2 reasons. It keeps the ribs from sticking to the pan, and it's also really easy cleanup. So go ahead and brush on your preferred barbecue sauce on the ribs, and now we're going to bake it for a total of 20 minutes, with 10 minutes being the first round. Then you're going to go ahead and flip them and add more barbecue sauce and cook them for another 10 minutes. Now these are my final results. This is what the ribs look like after baking at 350 for a total of 20 minutes. They are ready to be served and eaten. I do highly recommend using the rice paper method to get that texture of a nice chew and a nice consistency added to the ribs. If you do recreate this recipe, please tag me at Yessie's Plant-Based Diet on Instagram. I love to see your results. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are enjoying my recipes. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel and also hit that notification button so that you are notified when I post my next video.